Next up, we have Stephen Lee. So Stephen Lee is a motivational speaker and comedian, stand-up comedian. He's trilingual. He speaks English, Cantonese, and Mandarin. He's also a disabled motivational speaker and actor working in the US and Hong Kong. His comedy is centered around his experiences in both continents dealing with discrimination, and his content is his content is remarkably original. He believes we are all equal, equally ignorant, fallible, weird, and desiring freedom. For Steve, comedy is a way to get people, including himself, to laugh about our own shortcomings and problems. Please welcome Stephen Lee. Hi, Steve.
Hello. Welcome. Good morning to the United States. And good night here in Hong Kong. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great. Thank you so much for being here, Steve. What time is it where you are right now?
Around 11
Oh,
p.m. at
oh
night.
my gosh. Thank you for signing on at 11 p.m. It's 11 a.m. where I am. So we're on
All
opposite
right.
sides right now.
Well, it's
I
pretty much the same in my schedule because it's my lunchtime right now.
A night owl, eh? Okay, okay.
Right.
So I'd love to hear about your experience as a comedian with a disability. And to start off, can you tell us a bit about um, what it was like being a young person that was discriminated against within the Hong Kong education system for having a disability, and then to be performing in front of crowds all around the world talking about this head on.
So, quick story. When I was born, my parents they came from China, and we were living, or they were living in a refugee camp at the time when I was born. And when I was born with a disability, they were really afraid because from many developing country, a lot of time they have a hard time to raise kids. Uh, with disability. They don't know what to do with them. Will I be able to grow up healthy? And here's a story. Every time I did not do my homework at school, my mom would tell me the story. Uh, when you were a baby, we went around and asked a lot of nurses and doctor. And when they went to China, they were doctor and nurses telling them to give me up for the adoption or just put me next to a trash dump. But they did not. They decided to raise me, so I should be thankful.
Nothing's like a mother's guilt to make you do your homework.
Right? Oh my God. So that from that point on, I think my parents did a tried their best and did a very good job. And
Mm,
and then they we in when I was 6 years old, from kindergarten to in Hong Kong we call primary school, and it's universal. We have universal education, it's free, and they are supposed to admit every kid is around 6 years old, and we went to every school in my district, and they said, you know, uh, he has a disability. He might fall down. We don't have enough staff member, and I think My mom was guessing, if I fall down, I might sue them. Probably totally we would, but but it just like the school used all kinds of excuse to say no to us, and it took us about 6 months. We finally found a social worker, um, and they recommended me to or us to go to a school for disabled kids. So basically, for until like middle of high school, I studied in that little school for disabled kids in Hong Kong back in the days, around the 80s and 90s.
mm. So you told that wonderful anecdote about your mother telling that story. Now, was she doing this with a sense of humor? Did your parents have a sense of humor? Where did you decide to be like, okay, you experienced being different than other kids, right? You went through this system, you had schools that were like, no, 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 and then you found a place. When did it click for you to be like, oh, I'm really funny? And humor is a way to connect with people.
I am never being funny. I have, I mean, to be honest, the nerdy Asian guy you see on TV, that's me. That was, I mean, I would say that was me, kind of. I was
Mm,
like, hi, how are you? Um, I had that energy all that time. And I think, so what happened was my mom found an exchange student program in Hong Kong from that disabled school. And fortunately, I was accepted. And then I went to school in Kansas, by the way. Right? A huge cultural shock. And then I went on to study in California.
mm.
I worked in Hong Kong, and then I went back to the US. And I think it was the time when around right after 2008, that financial crash, and I went back to the U.S. and the economy was not very good, and I was like, oh my God, I was super depressed, and I was like, what should I do? And out of a joke, I was Googling. Oh yeah, there might be some classes I can take. I'll see if they have any comedy classes, right? So I literally Google online. It's like, oh wait a minute, really? This is not a joke. They actually had a free class, free stand-up comedy class, and I went to the first session. It was like pretty interesting. So I went on paying for my first class, and history, my comedy history start from there.
Wow, I love that. I love that it came later in life. It was a transition for you. And what is it about comedy, do you think, that has the power to bring people together and build community? And what what type of communities do you find yourself, are you gravitated towards certain ones, and like how does comedy bring it together?
So, just give you a little bit of my background. Went to an art school. I studied animation, and I went on trying to be a photographer. Um, I feel like my body, I couldn't just sit, 24 hours in front of a computer. I thought I'm a nerd, but I'm not that nerdy. And my eyes had starting to have problem, and I couldn't
Mm,
really do it. And I just want to try other things, other kind of art to express myself. I think that is that me. That is deep down. Just like I want to find a way for me to communicate to other people. Unfortunately, photography have to carry a lot of equipment, and there was a point I had to carry heavy battery to shoot, uh, models, and go to shoot do a photo shoot on in a beach where I just literally I can't walk there by myself, and I realized I couldn't do it, and I was in a deep depression for
mm,
2 3 years. And fortunately, I found comedy. I had an opportunity to go back to the U.S., and I found comedy there, and I realized, oh, I have 5 minutes to get on stage, and I don't need to carry my equipment. All I need is my little, brain, and a little bit of courage, and understand when you are not afraid
mm,
that people actually are not making fun of you. You're writing jokes, so you're making people laugh, and you realize, oh, my shortcoming or whatever other shortcoming is not really about me, it's how I see me. And this
mm.
is like a perfect way for me to express myself and also
Hmm.
communicate with people.
Oh, I love that. And I also love too the parameter of the tight five, right? You're like, okay, 5 minutes, go in, let's see how it plays. What was it like when you were first getting started? I'm a fan of comedy, and for me growing up, I love listening to stand-up comedians, and hearing about the process of it. It sounds like it takes a lot of work to make a funny set, you know, so I think there's a common misconception. People are like, oh, I'll just go up there and wing it and say funny things, you know, and then you
No,
try that and you're
absolutely
like,
not.
oh, no one is laughing. so, so like how do you workshop that? How long does it take to make a solid funny 5 minutes for you?
So basically, many of the master talks about this. Tragedy plus time equal comedy. So a lot of time people don't understand or they can't get over the tragedy part. That's where people feel offended or people
uh,
feel, I can't talk about that, or it's not my life. Like it's not related to me, right?
uh,
And then the comedian, a lot of time we miss the time part. Because comedian, we're over the tragedy part because we learn how to overcome or look at different kind of tragedy and open mind and listen to other comedians already. We're kind of like a psychiatrist in a way, right? We hear so many tragedy. So we're over the tragedy part, but we don't give enough time to ourselves and also our audience to understand or to recover from that tragedy. So then, when we're ready, comedy will come. So that is the formula that we need to test it out. Me or any veteran comedians or any newcomers or just some guy in the office or some guy on the street. That's the formula that we have to perfect.
mm, hmm. So I love too that you talked about there's this relationship with the audience, right? So we had a staff member at Powered Fly that saw you perform and said in that act, and sorry if I'm spoiling some of your material here, but you said this is the inspirational part of the evening, and it was referring to your visible disability. So what is the reaction like from the audience when you address something that probably they're all thinking or they're seeing already? So what does this achieve in your relationship with the audience when you're just like, here we go?
So in the disability community, we talk about this. People are over sensitive
Uh,
towards people, especially let's say people with disability. People always go, oh my God. It's like as if we were like, little cats or dogs, like something cute. It's like, no, like we're in a comedy show. You're okay to make fun of me, and I'm okay to make
mm,
fun of you. And because we're friends. And I'm
mhm.
trying to establish this relationship with you, and I think that's the beauty of what this is. So I think that is kind of what I meant when I said that. It's like I'm not your typical inspirational video guy, and just to make fun of that concept. It's like
Yeah.
I remember. Let me give you a quick one. Josh Blue, he has one quick joke. It's like someone went up to him and said, "Oh, you're so inspirational." It's like, "Oh no, I'm on my way to the liquor store."
That's a good line.
Exactly. I think that's really what it is to prove that we are all human. We're not perfect, and
Mm,
we don't have to be
mhm.
perfect all the time. So I think I want that's one of the beauty that I love about comedy.
Yeah. So you talk about using your own tragedies, right? So do you have those moments like when something bad is happening to you, you're like, well, this will be a funny story, or like how do you find material? Are you self-aware when it's happening? Is it later in the day? Do you keep like a notebook by your bed? Like what's the process like? Let me into Steve Lee's world, his comedy brain.
I think nowadays I find things that I think I'm linking back to my art. So the artist me is I have something to say, which is kind of like the flaw of how I see the world. Hey, things shouldn't be like this, or So, for example, I joke about my dad giving a lot of pressure on me. Not to do anything in entertainment business. And unfortunately, he passed away.
Mm,
And all these years, he kept like saying, "Oh, you're not gonna make it." And then after he passed away, my mom missed him very much and took us to a temple to see a medium, which is a lady that possessed with your ancestral spirits, right? And I'm like, that's that, yeah, it's just a scam. And then the lady, we sat in front of the lady, and then she went, and then she's possessed. And the first word that came out from that lady's mouth is, "Steve, you're not gonna make it." So things did not happen in this exact sense, but
Uh-huh.
I did go to a medium.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, the best is always draw from my own life because first of all, I'm just offending myself,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
also
Right.
I want to use my story and to see everybody else. We share very similar things in life, so we can just go ahead and make laugh about it, together.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. That's a very funny joke. And it's funny because it's like, yeah, we're always worried that we're disappointing our parents. Like you can have the most supportive parents in the world, and yet I'm still, I got my stack of daddy issues stat is sitting over there, right? I'm just like, never gonna do it,
We
you're
all
never
do.
gonna,
We all do.
right? And it's universal. It's like, yeah, exactly. Like I can identify with that joke, even though you have a completely different background, completely different relationship, and yet that's a universal experience of feeling human, right? So you talked about earlier too, well, we're continuing this conversation about connecting with the audience. So you've mentioned how the importance of listening to the audience, listening to them in order to know like where they are, taking the temperature of the room, right? But how do you do that if you're the one talking on the microphone?
That's the trick. That's the trick. So I teach students from time to time, and I teach a lot of new. I'll give advice to a lot of newcomers, and I learned don't give unsolicited advice. So when they ask, then I'll tell them this: um, is when you go to a show, look at it where it's happening, right? Look at the flyer. Who is promoting it? Look at your audience. What kind of audience are they? Pay attention what kind of humor they would like. Is it an early evening? How many drinks have they put in the system? Um, so, and things like these, like their, for example, their cultural background, their socioeconomic background. How do you address to them? Like, should I come in dressed really well because this is a corporate gig? They pay thousands of dollars, right? Or it's just a dive bar where there are a lot of drunks who are watching the game, and then you have to compete with the game. So every little detail is about paying attention first,
Mm.
paying attention to other people, to your environments first. And then we have a host in the show, and host is the most difficult job because it's like in a battle. He is the first guy. He is the first guy in the front line to test your audience. If he screws up, he screwed up for the rest of us. So you listen to the host. What kind of humor people laugh about? Do they even like? Sometimes people don't laugh, and then like there would be a show like, oh, they just don't speak very good English. It could happen like that.
Mm.
Or their culture, or like for example, people who make a lot of money, who pay you for like a corporate show. They just want to put some guy in there. They have a lot of money for any event. They might not care about your existence. They don't like any of your college humors. They make a lot of money and like I'm better than you. They might not like to laugh out loud. All that stuff need to put in mind before you open your goddamn mouth.
That's good
Just like what
advice.
you're doing, by the way, just like what you're doing. I came in, I saw you having a great time with the last guest,
Mm.
and you are an amazing host. You have great energy, and you just can't get me going there. So
Oh, thank
hats
you,
hats
Steve.
off to you.
Hats off to you, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So I would love to talk to you about. So you're trilingual, is that right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
you speak three languages. So what is it like? So we were talking about like taking the temperature of the room. So what about taking the temperature of a country, right? So there's different
Oh.
languages, there's different cultural, right? Okay, this is a big topic, right? So there's like a big, huge difference. Like, do you make a joke in America and translate it to other languages, or is it just like a completely different set of material? But is there? I imagine there's some jokes, like we said, are universal, but how do you make it palpable for those audiences in these different languages?
This is gonna be part two. Yeah, interview me next year. I'll be able to tell you. I mean, great question, by the way. So I think to me is following to with the last question that you had.
Mhm.
I think is the logic is the same. You
Mhm.
the universal part about who we are is find out, like we care for our loved ones, right? Family, right? And then friends, right? All these pattern is the same. It's across
Mhm.
humanity, right? And then we do different kind of jobs to sustain our living, right? And then the differences is really maybe like culture and slight philosophical differences, politics, cultural news, little things like that. Those are the differences, kind of.
Mhm.
Or of
Mhm.
course, the language. You can, language is not just language, right? It's also culture. Slang, the kind of slangs you have to learn. Right now, I'm trying to learn more Mandarin because I live in Hong Kong,
Mhm.
and China's stand-up comedy is blowing up. It's huge right there.
Huh.
And to my knowledge, they don't have a lot of disabled comedians. And in entertainment, being unique is very important. So I
Mm.
am learning a lot. I have to force myself to learn a lot from the news, from the like from China's source. And fortunately, they have like very popular apps. So I log into the apps and just look at what's on the top 10 news of the week or something. And you start from there, and then you occasionally have to watch their very popular movies. At least I know like what they're saying, or things like this, like to be able to connect to people from the big picture things that I'm talking about, like family, and then the small picture thing like current events, slangs, current culture, things like that.
Mm. Mhm. Earlier, you mentioned, uh, letting people in to making fun of you, to not like dance around it. Like you're good. You don't have to like you know you don't have to cradle me or pity me or any of that stuff. You're like, let's just hang, let's have a good time. So if comedy and jokes are a way for people to connect, but maybe someone that doesn't do it professionally, for friends that are trying to connect, or people, are a lot of our listeners, we're talking about comedy in the workplace, right? And there are some things that would be
Don't
inappropriate to
do it.
say.
Don't do it.
Just don't do it. From Steve Lee, just don't make jokes in the workplace.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, that was the question, I guess. It's an easy answer. Just don't do it, friends. No, but yeah,
The
but
thing
how to
is,
connect with
yeah, yeah.
people like in the workplace, have a laugh, but also be mindful and respectful,
Oh,
especially.
I have a quick trick. It's called "Don't try to be funny. Just be yourself." And
Mm,
I learned from a podcast called Jordan Harbinger Show. He invite a lot of amazing people, leaders in different industry. And one time they have a spy, someone, a former CIA spy, and they said when they have an agent, they would not tell the agent to become someone they're not. They use
oh,
most of who they are, and then add a little bit on top of that kick to pretend it's, that's not who they are. But most of who you are is still who you are. So I think it's the same logic, is just be genuine.
Mm,
You don't have to be funny, because when you try to be funny, by the way, there's not too much difference between a professional, a so-called professional, or non-professional. It's just that I suffer way more silences than most of you. So that's pretty much that's pretty
see,
much
we're
the
trying to be
difference.
funny. That's a funny line.
That's really the difference, right? Being a
Yeah.
professional is just like you did the grind. Um,
Yeah.
so I think just be genuine, listen to their stories,
Mm,
and then add a little bit misdirect there. And the easiest way is always make fun of yourself, make fun of your appearance. But you have to get over your tragedy first, and then once you start
mm.
trying it, it's like, oh yeah, my baldness is not that bad. I got way more stuff to worry about. Right?
Totally. And if there's maybe another bald person in the group, or is someone that's self-conscious about it, they can laugh because they feel like, oh, well, he's taking the wind out of his own sails.
But
It's okay.
establish that trust first. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. The number one
Right.
commodity is called trust. Stock
Hmm.
market, Apple product, whatever you're selling, it's trust. How do you earn people's trust? First of all, by listening.
Mm, hmm.
I learned. I made a lot of mistakes to learn this stuff. So
Oh man, it's hard too. I can imagine, and in my own experience, is it's such great advice, whether you're trying to you want to connect with someone or make a joke or whatever. This active listening that you're talking about, and trust, in my own experience, it's easy to get wrapped up in like, oh, I want to say something funny, and then I'm just like thinking in my own head, and then I'm not listening anymore, right? I'm not paying attention. Things are just kind of flying right over me, and I've lost an opportunity to connect with somebody.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So in these last couple minutes, maybe you can share with us maybe someone that's really inspiring you right now, that's also maybe in a part of you're saying is like comedy's like blowing up in Hong Kong, and like maybe some other folks that really getting you going right now that we can check out. And then also, of course, how can we stay connected to you and what's coming up for you right now?
Someone who inspired me. You mean other than my therapist?
I don't know that you're legally allowed to say their name and information. Might be a breach of
Well, by the way, I think it's just the podcast I mentioned, Jordan Harbinger show. It's like I'm not benefiting from his podcast at all whatsoever.
yeah.
But it really helped me to realize that, oh, it's okay to have weakness, but all these leaders in different industry, they they recognize their weakness, and but also they can find their strength and try to find a, a like find like this double-edged sword and use it as a weapon. And I'm learning a lot from that podcast. And also um, my upbringing, my dad passing away, and realize like I have to grow up,
Mm,
right? I mean, I can laugh about it, but it's part of life, it's like you are this branch of trees. Now you're growing as a tree, and then someday this tree is no longer there. And how do you
mm,
continue this whatever spirits and or your what you want, or how do you want to help people, all these stuff
yeah.
past, just like what I'm doing right now, or
Yeah.
what you guys are doing, these knowledge could be hopefully help, a lot of other people, things like that. That's what
Awesome.
I learned the last 2 3 years.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you for sharing your personal, story there. And unfortunately, we're out of time. What's the
Yeah.
best way to connect with you,
uh,
Steve?
s- SteveLeeComedy.com. So I have other social media on there. So yeah,
We can
you're
connect with
welcome
you there.
to ask me questions. Yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I have all my
Okay.
social media there.
Awesome. Well, Steve, thank you so much for making the
Thank
time.
you so
I
much.
hope you get some sleep soon, sleep tight. And thank you for the laughs. This has been really a
Thank you.
delight, Steve.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much. Thank you.
I'll talk to you later. Thanks so much.